for our
This meeting
friends
is being recorded.
for our friends gathering here on March 8th. It's really a cause for celebration. We are in the process of celebrating that the refuge was established 10 years ago in 2012. And the friends felt that it would be appropriate to share with all of our friends some of the activities that we've been engaged in over the course of the last 10 years
Hackmatack.
and how the refuge has grown. So with that, I'll go ahead and open up my first slideshow here. Can you screen share it for me, please?
Tech person's coming in.
Well, comma.
Right there.
I heard one paint at exactly 20 minutes after sunset. Period. And it was
Okay, somebody is talking. What we'd like to do is have everybody at least be muted while the presenters make their presentations. And I'm going to lead off with the introduction. And my first question, can everybody see the screen? Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge with the Nippersink in the foreground?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Well, this year, as I mentioned before, we're celebrating that the refuge has been in existence now for 10 years. And for some of you, most of you know that Hackmatack is actually a Native American word for the tamarack tree. And it's really been kind of a brand that we've used over the course of the last 10 years to celebrate the existence of the refuge. Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge is the 561st refuge in the Fish and Wildlife Service refuge system. We were established in 2012, and lands protected through this system are in public ownership to support the needs of fish, wildlife, and plant resources. One of the hallmark events that took place was back on August 15th of 2012, when Secretary of Interior Ken Salazar and Senator Dick Durbin joined us and many others to announce the establishment of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. By way of history, the first refuge was established in 1909 on Pelican Island. And if you go there today, they have celebrated the growth of the refuge system by putting down planks for each of the refuges within the Fish and Wildlife Service refuge system. And you can see back in January of 2013, Lenore and Margaret and others were, and Secretary of Ken Salazar in the green shirt on the far end, were able to lay down the Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge plank.
That's my mom.
Okay. Refuges provide home for some of this nation's most iconic wildlife, certainly, but they also provide habitat for familiar species and an opportunity for citizens to recreate close to home. You'll see this map several times, but this is a map that was established by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service back in 2012. Ed's going to talk more about the concept behind the refuge. The goals were to protect wetlands and grasslands and to enhance habitat for grassland dependent and other migratory birds. I can't advance it.
Okay.
The second goal was to create opportunities for hunting, fishing, wildlife observation, photography, environmental education. And then, of course, the third goal was to promote science, education, and research to encourage stewardship of our natural resources. Many of you, if you've traveled far and wide, have seen the blue goose, which is a symbol of the wildlife refuge system. And Refuge Friends provide an opportunity for folks to connect with the Fish and Wildlife Service and connect with wildlife. There are over 200 friends groups that work with the Fish and Wildlife Service to help protect America's natural resources. And friends groups, quite frankly, are crucial to the mission of the refuge system. You've seen this symbol of Friends of Hackmatack on the left. We were established as a 501c3 organization in 2013, and we've been recognized by the Fish and Wildlife Service as an official friends group.
He said, no, John Dewar's the right place because
I'm getting some interference. If you could mute your
That's Gary.
Yeah, it would be at John Dewar.
Okay. Let's go ahead. The mission, as you see it there, is to enhance the natural cultural resources and the beauty of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge. Okay, that concludes my portion of the presentation for this evening, and I'm going to turn it over to Ed. Go ahead, Ed. We're getting a lot of interference from somebody.
I'm gonna mute everybody and then I'll take people off mute.
That's Gary who's talking.
Somebody doesn't know how to mute here.
Which pavilion? Oops.
Ed,
So
can you unmute? There we go.
I am unmuted, and I'm hoping everyone can see my screen. So Cindy, if it's not up there, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to begin.
You look great.
All right, thank you. I don't hear that too often, so it's nice to hear. I'm going to talk a little bit about the concepts that went into the design of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge and how it came to have the very distinctive look that it does when we look at maps. So Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge is based on what's called a cores and corridors concept. And it is something that has become very prevalent in conservation thinking over the past 25 or 30 years. Cores are basically large blocks of land, typically with some high quality natural land within them or important species. And they're typically in our part of the world surrounded by areas that need to have their habitat restored. Corridors are the connections between those core preserves. And I'll talk a little bit about those in the next slide. But Hackmatack is basically composed of 4 cores and 4 corridors. And you can see them fairly clearly on this map. If I start on the Wisconsin side, this is a bi-state refuge, which is sort of unique in a lot of ways. The Buffalo Head core is connected to the Tamarack core area to the east or to the right through the Goose Pond corridor. And then the Tamarack core area is connected to the Queen Anne Prairie core area to the west by the Greenwood corridor. And finally, the Alden Sedge Meadow core area is connected to the Queen Anne Prairie core area through the Nippersink Creek corridor. And then finally in Alden, you see another corridor that sweeps back around to connect the Alden Sedge Meadow core area to the Buffalo Head core area through the state line corridor. And what doesn't show up well on a map like this, which gives us a good idea of location, is the fact that corridors can be composed of many different things. And in this case, the corridor is a riparian one. So Nippersink Creek and the tributaries of Nippersink Creek connect every one of these preserves. So if you were to follow the Nippersink from its origins up in the Alden Sedge Meadow, all the way over to the Glacial Park Tamarack core, and then down from the north, you would be traveling either the main stem or tributaries of Nippersink Creek. I am having problems advancing. Any clues there?
Can you use your mouse, or don't do the mouse and the advancer at the same time? If you can use the arrows. Don't,
I'm frozen with both mouse and with the other thing. So I'm going to stop share and come back up again and
yeah,
see if
back
that
out.
helps.
Yeah.
That sounds good, Ed. In the interlude, I just want to note in the chat that Kathy Nig is with us from the Fish and Wildlife Service, and we need to update our slide that the refuge system started in 1903. I think we had something different. So thanks, Kathy, for that update.
I think I may have figured this out. So let me talk. I'm on my second slide here. And why is such a system of cores and corridors valuable? And I believe why it was the design that the service looked at when they were working on this refuge is that it has a lot of important factors that work in tandem with one another. Core preserves are typically fairly large, and you could see that in the map. And they support species that are sensitive to genetic isolation. So species that don't do
Hey,
well.
Ed,
Yep.
we aren't seeing your map, so try again. You did it before, so.
Yep.
Cindy, it says the host has disabled participant screen sharing. You might need to re-enable.
Yeah, he's the co-host, but I don't know where that. Let me see. I certainly didn't. Try again, Ed. It wouldn't have been.
Is it back
There we
up?
go. Looks like it's coming. There you go.
All right, let's give that another try. Okay, so what I was talking about earlier is there are some real values to having this kind of system designed for any type of open space area, especially for a refuge. The core preserves are typically larger, so they support species that are very sensitive to being isolated. They can have genetic problems. And it also at the same time provides areas for species that need fairly large home ranges in order to survive and reproduce. It reduces what occurs when habitat is fragmented down into very small areas, and you begin to get the effects that occur when you have non-habitat areas built up around the edge. And this, I think, is an interesting concept that I've always kind of liked, and that is that it rewilds the landscape. So in a Midwestern landscape like ours, a core and corridor system can create many wildernesses across areas that otherwise wouldn't have them. The corridors facilitate the movement of that genetic material that I talked about and reduces problems related to inbreeding. And it also, in the case of this refuge, captures the aquatic component of biodiversity. So the fact that Nipperson Creek stitches everything together means that fish and mussels are also part of that refuge, and they have their own corridors for movement. And finally, it allows for some high value recreational uses such as hiking, fishing, and kayaking. To give you a close-up look at how this works, we're going to take just a brief sojourn into the Alden Sedge Meadow Core, and you can see how the components work. So the very dark green areas at the Alden Sedge Meadow Core are pre-existing open space. In this case, these are either Land Conservancy sites or McHenry County Conservation District sites. The areas in light green are the design for the ultimate size of the core as part of the refuge. So you can see that it builds on existing open space. And blue are areas that have been preserved in various ways since the refuge came into being 10 years ago. So you can see that these different approaches to preserving open space result in a much stronger system when they're welded together. And you can see the growth that has occurred in just one of those cores over the past 10 years in terms of protected open space. I'm going to back up for a minute just to say something about corridors, because there's often a misconception when you look at the refuge map and you see the size of the corridors. That doesn't mean all the land within that corridor is going to be preserved as part of the refuge. A corridor design in this case needs to be about 600 feet in size. It can be larger. That's the preferred size though. So that large sweep of land that's identified between sites is really a large area where that potential corridor can be built. And that's an important thing to understand when you're looking at these maps. So I'm talking now about the parcels that have been protected and transferred to the Fish and Wildlife Service since 2012, and there are many others in line to go that way as funding becomes available. But there is a difference between authorization and establishment, and that's important to understand. A refuge can be authorized, which means the Fish and Wildlife Service has the authority to begin to build a refuge in an area that is outlined in the refuge plan. But it is not really established until the service has an interest, a real estate interest in something within that area. So at that point, a refuge becomes established. And establishing a refuge was a very important priority after authorization occurred. And so if you take a look at the map on your right, you'll see a T-shaped blue area to the left of the map, and it's outlined in yellow. And that T-shaped area was the first real estate interest that was able to be passed to the Fish and Wildlife Service in October of 2012. And we call it the Peterson Tract. It's about 80 some acres in size, but it was a real example of how the conservation community came together to establish the refuge after it was authorized. The McHenry County Conservation Foundation, Open Lands, the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, Friends of Hackmatack, the Fish and Wildlife Service, and the district all partnered to make sure that the Fish and Wildlife Service had a 12-acre easement interest in that property, which established the refuge. And as the years have passed, the real estate interest has grown larger. And I'll talk about 3 of those parcels now. This is the Turner Tract, and it's in Genoa City, Wisconsin. Remember, this is a bi-state refuge crossing political boundaries. And it's in the Goose Pond corridor, which we saw earlier. It's about 86 acres of nice oak woodlands and former prairie, which is now restored prairie. And you'll see often with these that there are multiple partners involved in preserving it before it winds up going into the hands of the Fish and Wildlife Service. In this case, it was once again Open Lands and Ducks Unlimited. And the funding came from a wide variety of sources, including the Wisconsin DNR, private donors, Ducks Unlimited, Friends of Hackmatack. The cropland was restored to prairie and wetland after it was purchased, and it was conveyed to the Fish and Wildlife Service in 2018. And this parcel established the refuge in Wisconsin and created a true bi-state refuge. Here's a couple pictures for you. There's a little map on the side that shows you some of the areas that are part of this. There is the first Blue Goose sign that went up on a refuge property after 2012. So when you drive by it, this part of the world is now part of the National Wildlife Refuge System. And on the upper left, you see a couple of the woodland flowers that occur in that oak woodland there, bellwort and shooting star. If we move down into Illinois, the Blackman Tract is near the town of Richmond in the Tamarack Corps. It's 11 acres of wetlands and former oak savanna with a connection to a much larger surrounding wetland. And the wetlands in oak savanna have been restored with volunteer help and grant funding since it was purchased. And there is public access by the Conservation District's Prairie Trail North Bike Path. You can literally ride right up to it, park your bike, and get out and enjoy the trail and the vista over the wetlands. You can see some of the volunteers working up in the left-hand corner, clearing brush at the Blackman Tract. And you can see its location along the Prairie Trail North, just north of Glacial Park. Here's the trail that leads to the overlook, which looks out over a nice wetland. And as we move further down and to the west in Illinois, we come upon the Paracone Shade Tract, which is in Greenwood Township, and it's part of the Queen Anne Prairie Corps. So it's about 62 acres in size. It was once again pre-acquired by Open Lands, but facilitated by the Nippersink Watershed Association. And it contains a length of Nippersink Creek with a very high quality mussel community in it. And the site supports remnant sedge meadow, oak savanna, and wet prairie. Portions of this were also a conservation easement of the Land Conservancy. So once again, you can see multiple partners working on preserving areas within the refuge. Here's a close-up of the two parcels. If we cross the road, there'd be a slight interruption and we'd be on a different track that will be talked about by Steve a little bit later. That's the Land Conservancy track. But both of these were preserved by Open Lands as direct purchases. And you see a slipper shell mussel up on the right-hand side. That's one of the rare mussels that lives in this section. And you can also find marsh marigold there. Here's another shot of that stream. You can see it's the Nippersink before it becomes a big canoeing stream. It's up in its headwater section, and on the left, you can see the oak savannas on the shade track. So preserving land is very important, and there have been a lot of success in that arena. But a refuge doesn't function well unless it has good folks associated with it from a staff level, as volunteers, and as support groups like the Friends. So Hackmatack was fortunate to get a refuge manager in 2018. That's Todd Boonstra. Todd has since moved on to a bigger refuge up in Minnesota, and the Fish and Wildlife Service is currently looking to fill that position. We also had Sunny Miva during 2020-21, who was a Hispanic community outreach coordinator that was funded through the Fish and Wildlife Service. And so having staff here on the refuge makes a huge difference and help push forward the programs and the successes of the refuge once those staff members arrive. And we're really looking forward to having a new refuge manager once that position is filled. Todd did a wonderful job, and I think he may be in the audience tonight, so I want to give him a shout out on that. Also, for a period of time before refuge manager and staff were here, the Conservation District with the Fish and Wildlife Service sponsored a youth conservation corps for 3 years. And these were young people who worked during the summer and got an interest in conservation by doing that. And here's several of the groups. And one of the things you'll notice are a lot of smiles. So these were pretty hardworking young people. They got quite an education in conservation, and they had some wonderful experiences and did some wonderful jobs while they were here. And that's kind of the end of my portion of the program. And Steve, I believe I'm turning it back over to you.
Unmuted. Yeah.
Right there. All right, am I still muted? Am I muted?
No.
You're good. It looks good.
Okay, can everybody see the screen? I'm going to
Yes.
provide a series of slides to update everyone on some of the land protection projects that have occurred over the last 10 years. And as Ed has mentioned, it's been really the work of a number of partners that have resulted in protection of quite a number of different properties. Those properties that you see outlined in dark green are those properties that have been acquired over the last 10 years. And what I did was also put in the different communities that to give you some perspective on this donut-shaped refuge. And also you can see the cores that Ed has described, as well as the corridors. As Ed had mentioned, none of this would be possible without the work of partners. And as I look back over the last 10 years, I think one of the most significant accomplishments was the establishment of the Hackmatack Conservation Partnership and development of a land protection plan. And you can see some of the elements of the plan, but it really is simply partners working together to help build the refuge. We have 12 partners now, and you can see them there. All of them have made significant contributions to building the refuge, supporting the refuge in any number of different ways. And throughout that, and embedded within that land protection plan are some of the strategies the Fish and Wildlife Service has recommended with regard to land protection, expanding the core habitat, and then providing the linking corridors. And Ed has described that very nicely. But I want to point out that all of these land protection strategies, acquisitions, easements, the partners work with willing sellers. What I'm going to do is take you on a little bit of a road trip. I'm going to begin with the Tamarack unit, simply because I think most of you can visualize where that is, just north of Glacial Park. And then we're going to go clockwise through each of the corridors and cores. And then we'll talk briefly about some of the projects that have taken place outside of the footprint of the refuge. So beginning with Blackman, Ed has already described that. That's an 11-acre site embedded within the Tamarack core. But I'd also like to point out that in this image on the right, you can also see Tamarack Farms South, Tryon Grove, Powell 3. And I'll be discussing each one of those as we move along. Tamarack Farms South is located just south of Tryon Grove Road, 159 acres in size, and it borders a glacial park immediately to the south. And this unit contains wetlands, sedge meadow, and you can see there's a ditch, and hopefully at some point our partners will be able to come up with a scheme to re-meander that stream. Tamarack Farm South, the east parcel, really has been a parcel where the Friends have devoted a lot of energy and time with an Illinois Clean Energy Challenge grant. Significant here is that this site is located just north of the Richmond Burton High School. And we see this as a wonderful opportunity for the Friends to engage students. And in fact, the students, and Pete will describe to you later in our presentation this evening, how the students have been engaged in stewardship activities. But over the course of the last couple of years, we've devoted a lot of time and effort to restoring the oak savanna. And also similarly, we've spread seed on the agricultural areas with the support of Paul Brewitt with the McHenry County Conservation District. And I'd like to do a shout out here. We mentioned Todd. Todd's in this photo on the right, but also his son Jack and Sam have been great supporters of our stewardship activities over the years. Powell 3, another one. The interesting here, the drain tiles have been removed, and lo and behold, we've got some wetlands. And this is an image that Todd captured on one of his cameras that he mounted on the site. And again, I want to point out partnerships here. Some of the restoration work here was accomplished through funding with the North American Waterfowl Conservation Act. And then finally, the last parcel located within the Tamarack core is Tryon Grove. And this site is bordered by Tryon Grove Road on the south, Keystone to the west. And this here, the drain tiles have been removed and the cropland, formal cropland has been seeded with prairie. And again, I want to mention that Open Lands has been a key partner in many of these properties, many of these projects. And I would be remiss if I didn't also mention Illinois Clean Energy, which has provided funding for many of our partners to engage in land acquisition projects. Moving down to the Greenwood corridor, there are two properties there, the mainstay, Tryon Creek Woods. First, the mainstay is a conservation easement that was donated to the Land Conservancy of McHenry County. And this site is located adjacent to Glacial Park. Another property in this corridor is the Tryon Creek Woods, acquired with support from McHenry County Conservation Foundation. and then other funding and support from the Land Conservancy of McHenry County. So again, you see the idea here is that partners are what make all of these projects possible. Within the Queen Anne Prairie Corps, this is the Peterson parcel that Ed talked about that was instrumental in establishment of the wildlife refuge. And again, you can see the partners that were helpful in making this happen. Twin Creek, the partially completed project, it's in the lighter green in the image to the left in the screen. This site is really located between properties to the west, to the left, owned by the McHenry County Conservation District, and also properties to the east. So you can see why this one attracted the attention of many of our partners, the district, open lands, private conservation buyers, Ducks Unlimited, all working to forge connections along Nippersing Creek. Paracone Shade, now with the Fish and Wildlife Service. Ed has already mentioned this property, so I won't go any further with this. But here's another property located within the Queen Anne Prairie Corps, an easement donated by Dr. Lloyd Shaw. And again, with support from the Land Conservancy of McHenry County, Nippersink Watershed Association, all working to support and help build the refuge. In this image, I wanted to point out the location of the village of Alden here, and then also the Spar parcel located within the Alden Sedge Meadow Core. It's 146 acres in size. The croplands have been planted to prairie with support, I think, from Pheasants Forever and also NACA, North American Waterfowl Conservation Act. Includes, and this property is significant also because it borders Alden Sedge Meadow owned by the McHenry County Conservation District. This is an older image. It includes the barn, but that barn now has since been removed, and actually the Friends have now been engaged in doing some stewardship activities, and also with the support of the Conservation District, a controlled burn was conducted at this site. Located also within the Alden Sedge Meadow Core are the Wexler and Santos properties, collectively 55 acres. This site includes, the Santos site consists of restored prairie, and the Wexler parcel consists of a very rich, very nice white oak savanna. And interestingly here, we believe that one of the witness trees used by those early surveyors still survives on the property. Buffalo Head unit, there's been one parcel acquired within that core, the Kundert property. We've been moving now, we're virtually in Wisconsin. If you could wind up and throw a baseball very far, you might have it land in Wisconsin. But this is 181 acres in size, consists of wetlands, sedge meadow, opportunities to do some wetland restoration work. But again, this property lies adjacent to the Hebron peatland, which is owned by the McHenry County Conservation District. And then finally, the Turner parcel that Ed had previously described, now with the Fish and Wildlife Service. And again, you see that there were a number of partners involved in protecting this particular site. Then there are some additional properties that have taken place within the Nippersink watershed, but lie just outside of the boundary of the core and corridors for the refuge. And I'm going to talk about a few of those. The first is the Keebler Rich property. You can see that designated Unit A is owned by the Keeblers, and Unit B is owned by the McHenry County Conservation District. But there were other partners involved with this, including Open Lands, the Land Conservancy, and again, of course, private landowners helped make this happen. And this site includes remnant oak savanna, and some beautifully restored prairie by June and Steve Keebler. One of the most recent projects is the Botlemy parcel, 76 acres in size, and you can see its location virtually on the edge of the village of Alden, and the partners included the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the Land Conservancy, Open Lands, the district, and again, private landowners who work to protect this particular parcel. This property includes rich woodlands, elements of sedge meadow, including a portion of the Alden Sedge Meadow, Illinois Natural Area Inventory Site. Then Monastery Marsh, a large wetland restoration project located along one of the major tributaries to the Nippersink, Alden Creek. And partners include Ducks Unlimited, the district, Open Land, and Open Lands. And there you can see the location of Monastery Marsh along Alden Creek and its proximity to the Alden Sedge Meadow core. Then another property has been acquired located just east of the Tamarack Core Unit on the other side of Route 31, but it does include elements of wet meadow and then a section of Nippersink Creek, 153 acres in size, and it includes sustainable farming operation, oak savanna restoration, and opportunities to protect portion of that riparian corridor. And again, Open Lands, the Land Conservancy, and a private landowner were instrumental in protecting this particular parcel. So a quick summary of 10 years and growing. This has been a real success. I've always thought that building out the refuge is going to be a multi-generational effort, but I think we can all be proud of what has been accomplished over the course of the last 10 years. Within the core and corridors, 19 projects totaling approximately 1,500 acres. And then within the Nippersink watershed, but just outside of those core and corridors, another 5 projects totaling about 550 acres. And so that really represents a quick look at some of the properties that have been acquired over the course of the last 10 years. And I would have to stress again, the importance of partners in making this all happen. And we're looking forward to the next 10 years. Okay.
So this is Cindy here. And so I'm gonna start off a section of our program where we're gonna be focusing on activities by our friends group and also our members. So I've just got a few slides and then I'll turn it over to Nancy and we'll turn it over to Pete. So for those of you who've been with us since before we were even friends of Hackmatack, you know that we used a lot of social media, our website, our Facebook page, email lists to gather together the names of many people who then helped us by coming out and advocating for the establishment of the refuge. And so this slide just shows you that we still have that presence on your phones and your computers, probably even more on your phones now than it was 10 years ago. Still have over 2,000 followers on our Facebook page. We've been moving to sending out at least monthly e-newsletters using the MailChimp format, and we've got 1,300 people on our email list. Still make use of our website, and you're going to hear more about some new features on our website from Linda later on in this program. But one of the new things that's happened when we switched from being friends of Hackmatack to Friends of Hackmatack National Wildlife Refuge is that we are now a membership organization. So thank you to the many of you who've joined as members. And just a little plug here, if you go to our website, under the support tab, there'll be a drop-down menu. It says Join the Dream. That's where you can find our membership brochure and sign up to be a member. Also on our website, if you look at on our news and activities tab, we always have our yearly calendar posts there. So, if you want to know what's coming up, check that out. Not so many followers on Twitter and Instagram. So if you're a person that makes use of those types of social media, check those out. Some of our younger members on our board have been helping to get us older folks engaged in that type of social media. And we have a phone number. It's not staffed, but if you leave a message, it'll get to us and we'll give you a call back. I'm trying to advance my slide. There we go. So we've talked a lot about land, and we're all about preserving more land because this is a national wildlife refuge. It's for wildlife, but refuges are also for people. And so one of the things that happened after the refuge was established was the Friends group needed to really kind of pivot and do the things that an official Friends group does, and that's support the refuge and its activities. And so I really want to give a shout out to the Fish and Wildlife Services Visitor Services Division. We had no staff those first few years we are a refuge, but they really helped us establish some major programs that we continue to hold annually to this day. So shout out to Fish and Wildlife Service, but also, again, shout out to our partners who partner with us on these major events. So McHenry County Conservation District, McHenry County Audubon Society, IDNR, Friends of Bolovog, Friends of Moraine Hills. These are our partners on these major events that have been, going on for the last 8 years. So we just finished up our In Search of Eagles outdoor event in January. We had our Eagles of Illinois show just a couple of weeks ago. People love these events. World Migratory Bird Days are coming up in early May. So another plug here, we need volunteers to help with activities those days. So if you're interested, we'll train you. It's lots of fun. Put your name in the chat if you're willing to help out with World Migratory Bird Days this year. Nancy will talk more about the Monarch Fest, National Wildlife Refuge Week. We've been celebrating that since we've become a refuge. One of the events that we hold annually during that week is the Big Sit. That's a lot of fun. It's a day spent looking for birds. Last year, the refuge system established this new event in conjunction with National Wildlife Refuge called Walk for the Wild. And so we had an initial small walk last year, but we're looking forward to that becoming one of our major programs in the future. So now I've just got a series of slides here just with pictures. I had lots of fun going back through our Facebook page and looking for pictures from the events all over, from all over the years. And I think of this slide as the wing slide. It's either people looking for things with wings or people wearing wings. And we've got pictures here from the Eagles of Illinois show. That picture in the middle is from this year's show. Pictures from kids out at the Eagles show at our tabling, folks out at looking for birds at the big set. Fish and Wildlife Service has been helping us with bird banding at Migratory Bird Days. That's always popular, and just threw in a butterfly from the Monarch Fest here for this wings slide. Here's another set of pictures. Again, really appreciate how the Fish and Wildlife Service staff has come from outside of the area to help us with these events. I put up this In Search of Eagles flyer from last year, because you remember last year we were in the middle of a pandemic. We did not have our Eagles of Illinois show. We shifted to a show via Zoom, which is also a great program. But this January day, it was a pretty nice sunny day. People were tired of being cooped up in their houses. We were overwhelmed with people who came out to look for eagles last year. This year, probably not as many, but still we're getting so many people out on cold winter days to look for eagles. It's really exciting. Some more pictures, a picture from our initial walk for the wild. I threw in this picture that's in the upper right-hand corner. That's of Sarah Schuster, who's a former Friends of Hackmatack board member who had a business up in Lake Geneva where they would get people out paddling. And we were doing these kind of special events even before the Refuge was established, working with the Sierra Club's Inspiring Connections Outdoors and getting kids out for a weekend out at Hackmatack. And that was a partnership with Friends of Bigfoot Beach State Park. That's kind of gone by the wayside now during the pandemic, but we're hoping that we'll be able to do those type of activities again soon. And then just another set of pictures, folks making use of the props, the wings, the photo booths, the spread arms of eagles, kids making use of the props that we bring out to our events, and just some wonderful pictures of birds from the bird banding that Fish and Wildlife Service has included in our World Migratory Bird Day celebrations. I put down at the bottom here on this information about the Eagles of Illinois program. That program, we fill all those seats every year. It's such a great program, and we really appreciate that the Fish and Wildlife Service is the sponsor of that program. Now, we've also then, for the last 8 years, have had what we call our quarterly Friends gatherings. And just a bunch of pictures here again. During the winter months, like now, we often are inside. I think Brandy Dunn is here tonight. So down in the lower left corner, she gave us a great indoor program about her love of native bees. Up in the upper right corner is a picture of Ada Frey, who lives in McHenry County, and she's the country's most decorated junior ranger. We had a wonderful time with her one evening. But then you see the rest of these photos are from outside. We usually try for our June and September Friends gatherings to get people out of doors. And you can see it's a Tuesday evening. It always lends itself to great pictures because the light is so good. And then I think this is my last slide. Our fourth gathering of the year is always our Friends annual meeting. And so I just looking back, I put up the flyers that Nancy has put together for us over the years for our annual meetings. We've had great speakers, talks about cranes and grassland birds and why does Hackmatack matter, about culture of diversity. That was a great program last year. That was 2 years ago. Freshwater mussels this past year. So just a lot of, I think, just was fun for me to reminisce in putting these slides together for you. And I'm going to stop sharing now and turn it over to Nancy, who's going to pick up next.
Okay, folks. And I'm just going to elaborate a little bit more on the Monarch Fair. And it is just one more example of the incredible partners that we've had over the years with all these initiatives that are really U.S. Fish and Wildlife initiatives. And as a friends group, as a recognized friends group, we embrace them early on, and so have the public. And we are 5 years strong in our Monarch Family Fun Fair. It is held in Crystal Lake, one of our population centers at Main Beach. That is a conservative number. We've had at least 2,500 people come through in that 5 year. We had 1 year of hiatus, but last year we were able to run it again. 30 partners is a small number too, because over the years, we have many groups that have come and gone to be part of it. Now, this is one of them that I picked up from one of the old Monarch Coalition is what we call ourselves. But we had Loyola University allowing us to meet, and we had education sessions with that. We had one of the people not on here is Small Waters, who later went on to work on a pollinator grant with us for Johnsburg Junior High and Grammar School. A lot of these partners have been with us for a long time, and it is a serious pleasure and surprise on how interested people were. And in 2015, it wasn't well known, but a lot of people jumped on it, certainly the conservation people, and then places like Bethany Lutheran Church and Resurrection Church and all number of groups jumped on it to be part of it. Kind of have a monarch mania over the years here. We did have the Flight of the Butterflies in conjunction with McHenry County Conservation and Bigfoot Beach State Park, getting across the border as a bi-state refuge. And I believe the Bigfoot Beach State Park, that was a nighttime showing outside at the park, which is a lot of fun. One of our other huge partners has been the Wildflower Preservation and Propagation Committee. They have done challenges for people to donate. And thank goodness early on they did that, because there was a lot of reason that we had to help out with money to get the refuge going. I'll talk about that later on. But we supported them on their big plant sale. And of course, everybody began to understand the necessity. It's not just monarchs, it's pollinators in general and native pollinators that we need to be considering. Here's some of the early pictures. We had some of the interns from U.S. Fish and Wildlife in that first year. This dad and this little child who was so serious after getting the butterfly painted by the people from Creative Arts, one of our constant partners with artwork. He has been back for at least three of the years, and I've got to watch his daughter grow. But he came out of that first fair and he said, "This was fabulous. Are you going to do it again?" That first year, as his daughter looked very serious on his shoulders. So it's a very busy time. A lot of people learn from all our different partners and go to the different booths. And the way we get them to go to the different booths is we have a monarch quiz, and each booth, and there's usually anywhere from, there's usually about 16 booths they have to visit. And they get the answers to, like, how do butterflies taste their food? And anybody who doesn't know that, look carefully. at this, but they taste it with their feet, but also we have it in English and Spanish. So it helps bring in the people who are picnicking at Crystal Lake Main Beach. And we're looking at the connection between the United States and where a lot of these monarchs are migrating to in Mexico. A very interesting thing we learned early on when we were working with LURIC, Loyola University, and their big holding out in Woodstock, where they bring the kids in for seminars. We actually learned from their housekeeper there, who was Hispanic, that many of the people in McHenry County actually come from that area in Mexico. So we have been working very hard to bring that connection together. And it's been an interesting journey to do that. This was this year's Monarch Family Fun Fair. I have to tell you that these photo booths were painted by Creative Arts. I outlined them and I left them with them, and the kids painted them. I was shocked and stunned at what a lovely job they did under the tutelage of the Creative Arts teachers. But they were also built using the Volo Bog volunteers. And Stacy, I may not get the correct name, but Stacy said, our guys can build that. And so that was a partnership. And believe it or not, Field Museum borrowed them twice before they built their own. So, I can't say enough about them when you've got Field Museum borrowing them. This was one of the wonderful things that happened at our 2021 fair. We had whole Hispanic families who were picnicking at Crystal Lake Main Beach coming in and doing the quiz. We had grandparents, we had kids, we had moms and dads. And oh yes, and by the way, Steve just reminded me, when you do that quiz and finish it.
And everybody passes.
Yes, everybody passes. We test them on it, and that's what they're doing. They're testing them in Spanish right there. And they're doing the answers. Crystal Lake Culvers, who actually has a manager who is Hispanic. She has worked with the owners, and for all of these years, we get the ice cream tokens. So everybody gets a free ice cream token to bring to Culver's to get an ice cream cone if they finish the quiz. So thanks to these ambassadors this year, this was a fabulous group. They dressed up as butterflies, went out, brought people in, helped bring, the hesitant older grandpas who were afraid it might cost money to have face painting and things like that. But they brought them in, and we got whole groups in, which was a great, a great breakthrough for us. Okay, I'm going to segue right now. We're actually going into a different portion. But one of the things I've been assigned to cover, because I'm the treasurer of this organization, is how we do fundraising to help do the restoration projects. And of course, you need to find the money somewhere, and we need to look at how we're going to do that. And I want to first bring up that one of the first things that we had to do early on for that Turner parcel in Wisconsin and Genoa City, was that Ducks Unlimited came in, swooped in, got that parcel, and began the restoration. But Ducks Unlimited needs to refill their fund, and they requested that we try to raise $10,000. And as a small, all-volunteer organization, we were a bit trepidatious, but I'll have to say that because of our members, because of our donors, what we feared would be a scary, long process was a very successful process. So without our partners, without our members, without our donors, we'd be getting nowhere. And it's just been an amazing journey this 10 years. This is many of the flowers in this area are well worth seeing in the springtime, and hopefully we'll have a walk there in our public events. So another thing we do is raise dollars for restoration. And again, we have to find the grants that can do that. And so Illinois Clean Energy, maybe a lot of you are familiar with it, maybe you're not, but they do a challenge grant. They would love to give you money, but you have to get donations. And so we've had 2 of those grants so far. First one, like I said, we were a bit trepidatious, but our donors came forward. We were able to raise $7,000 to get the 3-to-1 match to get 21,000. And then Pete will talk about this later on, but do the 400 hours at restoration workdays to get 4,000. And then our social media hours, putting it out here, getting people to know about what we're doing. We do 200 hours of that and we get 2,000. So over the years, we've managed to raise the funds for restoration and the 2 stewardship grants and $68,000 for the stewardship grants. And on top of that, we've had 2 amenity grant projects from Illinois Clean Energy. And also 2, I forgot to put it in, we actually did a pollinator garden, and we kind of set off a trend in McHenry County because with Small Waters, thank goodness, and a number of other partners and Johnsburg School District, we were able to establish, one of the first pollinator gardens with a school in the area, which set off many other schools. We advised many other schools on, and it helped them with their signage and with their curriculum and getting that done. So we did it by challenging our members, asking them, please, we've got to raise this. We've got a deadline. We put it out on our webpage. We put it out on Facebook. But we also put out these crazy puzzles and tried to sell pieces of the puzzle. We weren't sure it was going to work. And by golly, it worked because of our members and donors. And we did it again and again and again. And our donors kept coming through for us. So it was a very satisfying thing to see that happen and be able to match it 3-to-1. I want to show you real quick some of the projects we did with restoration. This is Glacial Park after a summer burn. We had a joint project with our Blackman, if you remember the one along the trail. It was Blackman parcel and Glacial Park, and we had a joint project. This was the day that we planted those trees, and then this is what it looks like now. And believe it or not, you can actually see some of those trees and some of the bushes with the shrubs we planted, the native shrubs. So it's coming along. This hill is right near the barn. The barn is right over this way in the road. So you'll have to watch it develop. It's going to be a slow go, but it's looking lovely. And this is one of the amenity projects we did. This is the lower deck of the back of Glacial Park. And this is where they bring the kids out for education outings out of their basement and into this area. They had horrible, heavy, splintery benches. And we helped provide the money to do that. And it was the Clean Energy Amenity Grant that helped us do that. This is Blackman. And you've seen some pictures of this. This is one of the shots of our original, what it looked like. And this was after several years of a lot of volunteers and a lot of work. And I apologize for this picture, but that's part of the amenities that came in. We've got much better pictures, but I couldn't locate it before that. But you can go along the bike trail and you can stop here, take a rest. You can go from Glacial Park up to Richmond, but stop partway, take a rest and visit this parcel. And this is part of the refuge now. All right, I'm going to leave it here, but the one we're working at and wrapping up, the final report's due at the end of March here, is the Tamarack Farm South. And Pete's going to talk about that, but I just want you to look at that picture and look at what the place looks like. And when Pete talks about this property, look at what it looks like now. Okay. Pete, you can take it away.
Here I come. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Looks great.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Jackson. I'm on the Friends Board, and I also coordinate volunteer stewardship work days for Friends of Hackmatack. And there's going to be a little repetition here by now, but I'm going to try and talk with a focus on what our volunteers have accomplished on our refuge in the time since I've been on the board, which is about 4 years. At any rate, ecological restoration is going on at many different sites, some located on the refuge, and some sites that are not yet a part of the refuge, but may become so in the future. So here is the by now familiar footprint or donut, the Hackmatack footprint. And I just want to go through and show you where all the sites are where we've done work. And some of you may have been at some of these sites, and this might give you a little perspective. We've worked at 10 sites so far, and 4 of those are on the refuge and 6 are off the refuge. So I'll just scroll right through and add those as I scroll. So there's the Turner property. That's our Wisconsin refuge site. Then we have that Blackman parcel along Route 12 heading into Richmond, which you've heard about. And then we have 2 parcels that are contiguous in the southwest part of the refuge footprint, and those are Paracone and Shade, and they amount to one site because they abut each other. And then off refuge, we've had work days with our volunteers at Twin Creeks, the Keebler parcel, the Svar parcel, where we've just had our first work day, and we are hoping to have many more in the next year or two. The Wexler property, which we just had a joint work day with the Conservation District roughly a month ago. Beautiful white oak woodland there that's a really beautiful site. Powell 3. And finally, the site that you've heard a lot about from some of the others, and that's the Tamarack Farm Southeast property. Now, the 2 sites of these 10 that I'm showing you here that we've done the most work on are the Turner site on the refuge and the Tamarack Farm Southeast site off the refuge. So I'd like to talk a little bit in depth about those 2 sites. So at Turner, much of the work has focused on garlic mustard removal from a very nice woodland that features a very nice array of spring wildflowers. And so here you see Cindy, Tom, and Steve standing in front of a pile of garlic mustard that is actually taller than they are. And that's from a single morning's work. We pulled a ton of garlic mustard out of that place, but you would not believe the incredible quality of the spring wildflowers at the site. And for the hard work of our volunteers at Turner, upwards of 500 hours over the last several years, Friends of Hackmatack received the prestigious Invader Crusader Award from the Wisconsin Invasive Species Council. And here's a picture of Steve and Nancy receiving the award in a faraway place called Wisconsin. Not so far away at all. Pulling garlic mustard has its redeeming qualities. You get to see what is blooming at the same time as you are removing an invasive species. Turner's wildflower bloom is exceptional, and here's a nice colony of bloodroot. And here's one of 2 species of white trillium at the site. This is the large flower trillium. And this picture sums up why we work so hard on removing garlic mustard at Turner. Here you have a beautiful Dutchman's breeches, which is being encroached upon by a couple nasty clumps of garlic mustard. It just makes you want to get out there and pull it, doesn't it? But the site where we've worked the most over the past 2+ years is the 5-acre savanna at Tamarack Farms. Friends of Hackmatack volunteers have put in 825 hours at this site alone. And since our first workday in December of 2019, the site has undergone an amazing transformation from overgrown, dense woodland, complete with a solid carpet of first-year garlic mustard, to a beautiful oak savanna. This shot is from last summer, looking west from the drive into the high school, if you're familiar at all with that. And then again last fall. And if you can see at the very back, you're looking west. It's still not quite clear all the way through. But this winter, it looked like this. Now this is looking from the west back east. But as you can see right through those savanna trees. So this represents a completion of the clearing work that was done there. And look how the site has been transformed in just over 2 years. And we've had very many successful and well-attended work days at the site. And I just wanted to run through a couple pictures just so you get the idea. Here's the result from a work day where we left about 8 or 10 brush piles to be burned. And we were removing mostly large box elder combined with a lot of brush, honeysuckle, buckthorn, that kind of thing. We also had to do a lot of work to remove garlic mustard, cutting it, spraying it. There was a lot of woody resprout spraying, but we're moving along pretty well. We've had some great work days. The great thing about Tamarack is, as I believe was mentioned, it's immediately north of the Richmond Burton High School. And so we've been able to engage students with the National Honor Society in restoring the savanna by their school. They've attended many work days over the last 2 years. They also got an education about oak savannas, why they're important but vanishingly rare, and how invasive species are adversely impacting our natural areas. This is an added benefit to restoring the site. We have board member Ron Erdman, who happens to be a retired superintendent of schools, to thank for getting the students out. Thanks, Ron. And finally, on a very cold day in January, 7 brave students from the Richmond Burton High School came and helped us sow savanna seed across the 5 acres. Volunteer workdays are an important part of the management and of current and future refuge sites, and they provide the public with an opportunity to see the different sites that are or that may become a part of the refuge. Being able to watch as these sites are restored to their pre-disturbance condition is a very satisfying experience. And thank you to all who contributed at Tamarack and elsewhere. The work you do is vital to the development of the refuge. We look forward to seeing you at a future workday. And one last thing, another vital part of the management work, quite behind the scenes, if you will, that goes on at sites both on and off the refuge, is undertaken by another Friends of Hackmatack board member, Paul Brewitt, who also happens to work for the McHenry County Conservation District in his day job. Paul has done huge amounts of work through a memorandum of understanding between the Conservation District and the Fish and Wildlife Service. And basically he does the heavy lifting. Here's a shot of Paul standing by a ditch where he's removing drain tiles. And that's his machine there in the background. You see him here standing looking across the ditch at former refuge manager Todd Boonstra. But Paul's done a lot of this tile removal work, which is perhaps the first step in the restoration of a site, and it certainly exceeds our capabilities with the volunteers. So we couldn't restore these sites without Paul's heavy lifting up front. He's also done a tremendous amount of seeding at the Tamarack site and elsewhere. And here's just a few more pictures of some of the tile removal work that Paul's done. I'd just like to thank Paul for the great support that he's doing for the refuge and for the Friends. Thanks, Paul.
think we're ready to switch up, and I think we're turning it back over to Nancy to talk about our 10th anniversary plans.
Okay, it looks like I'm gonna knock you off, Pete. You haven't,
Please do.
yeah, okay.
I don't know how to get out of here.
Okay, no problem. Okay. All righty. Now we're getting close to the end, and we'll be taking questions and chatting with everybody, but I just want to talk about what we're going to be doing as far as wait, okay, slideshow. What we're going to be doing coming up for our 10 years, and some of it is set and planned and other of it is still moving, but I'm going to start towards the end of the year to talk about what we want to do to celebrate with our members, with our friends, with our partners, with our donors. And so I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of what we'll be doing for our annual meeting, because we just signed the contract, and I thought this little boy hiding behind a tree and a trail in a natural area would be a perfect symbol of that. But we are going to be holding a Gala Members Evening celebration. You're all familiar with us doing our annual meetings up in Richmond, but now we would like to do something special for our members. It's going to be November 8th, which is our typical Tuesday night at the Dole Mansion Lakeside Center in Crystal Lake. And the reason being is that this facility has the room to hold us for presentation, for some fun gathering, for some fun time. If you can imagine our presentation in the back of the room with a lot of chairs. But also, if you look at the walls here, as you're being wined and dined, we are hoping that we're going to have many, many wonderful examples of how people celebrate Hackmatack on the walls by November. And this is going to be through writing, artwork, and photography. We're going to be putting out the call for people to tell us what says Hackmatack to you and how can you express it. And everybody's creative. There's no rules and regulations as far as how you do it, whether you do it through photography and you see it as a landscape, whether you're into the minutia of our nature and the important species, whether you see it in abstract as some sort of strange beehive, whether you're literal, whether you do it in words, in stories or poems, whether you do it with cloth in quilts, whether you do it in 3D in wood, or even if you do it in glass. And we're putting out a call for everyone. We'll have the parameters up on our website and through our Facebook posts and email blasts, but it's going to be for adults and children, for people of all ages to give us their beloved artwork about Hackmatack, about natural areas, about how we all connect and why we care so much. So we are also planning our public gatherings, and you've seen some of what we've done in the past. And I'm just going to give you a real quick view of some of the gatherings and some of the places. This one is at Turner. This one was a special project with a stream meander, but you get to go places where you don't ordinarily go, whether you're birding, whether you're learning about plants, and talk to experts. And it's always a fun excursion, sometimes challenging, but it's usually a beautiful time for all. So we'll be posting our public meetings, and we're hoping that you'll all join us for our special excursions on the things we're going to do over the course of our 10-year celebration this year. And one of the last things I'd like to point out, and I'm going to hand this over to our board member, Linda, and she is going to be, and Susan, they're going to be talking about the new web, our new look on our web, which is fabulous, and our new web timeline and our field notes blog. So I'll let Linda take it away from here, okay?
All right, I'm going to share my screen and just very quickly highlight a couple things. Can everyone hear me?
You hear you?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. So just a couple things and fun things to look at on the website. Just be aware that on the home page of the site, all of the upcoming events are listed here. And so you can check here for dates and times as they become available of activities and things going on. And then the next thing I want to pull your attention to is our new blog, which is under the News and Activities tab, our Field Notes blog. And we have Susan Sander, who's a new board member like myself, and she is writing some blog entries that just give a tremendous insight into what happens on the refuge. And she talks about flora and fauna, and you just get a view of what's going on in the woods or in the prairies. And so this latest blog post was posted today. And so I hope that people take a look. There's 2 blog posts now, and keep watching every month for new things that'll give you some things to look for or things to see on the refuge. And then the last thing I want to show you is our timeline, which is under the About tab. And this is kind of fun. It was a free tool that's provided online through the Students of Northwestern that they put out. And what it does is takes you through the establishment, our approval, the establishment, and the development of the refuge. And so if you have some time, visit the timeline and just take a look at everything that's gone through from when they first were dreaming about it, to gathering community support, to open lands becoming involved, and it'll just take you through to the present day. And you can also click on this toolbar down here and just jump through. You can see the titles and jump through to different things, and just kind of see what's gone into it from the beginning to date. And so I just hope that everyone gets a chance to spend a little time on the website and explore. And I'll put the links in the chat just once again so that you've got all the links. And that's it for me.
Thanks, Linda. Maybe folks want to come off. Yeah, need to do that too. Start your videos, because we're done with the formal presentation, so we just want to chat with folks. So there are some questions in the chat. Do you want me to maybe to kick things off? I'll ask some of those questions. Actually, the first question that hasn't been answered yet is from Pete to Ed, asking, does U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and Friends of Hackmatack work on land acquisition in the corridor areas? If so, how is that different from core land acquisition? Sorry to put you on the spot, Ed. Pete,
No, that's fine. And I'm not going to talk for the Fish and Wildlife Service. I think I'll talk for the partnership in general. But it kind of mirrors where conservation is today, I believe, and that is that lands that are within both the cores and the corridors become projects when the circumstances come together to make it possible. So you'll have an interested landowner who wishes to preserve their land and put it in a conservation easement, or a family will decide that it's time to sell property they've had for a while. And the partnerships seem to come together around those projects, as opposed to here's project A and the piece next to it is project B and the piece next to that is project C. And I think you see that with conservation work across the country. Part of that is due to funding. Part of that is due to a really growing interest in what constitutes conservation. When I got into this field many years ago, it had a very narrow definition. Today, we're working with everything from regenerative agriculture to classic conservation to reforestation to Christmas tree farms, to you name it. So I think the answer, Pete, is really that it happens in both cores and corridors. The big difference, I would say, is that corridors more frequently tend to be conservation easements as opposed to direct purchases. And I believe that the reason for that is that for them to function, they don't have to be as large. They just need to be continuous. And in the case of this system, preferably on both sides of the riparian system. If anybody else wants to answer that or correct something that I have wrong, please jump in.
That sounded good, Ed. Thank you for that.
That's Kathy Nig there. So Kathy, maybe tell your role, introduce yourself.
Sure, yeah. Thank you everyone for being here tonight. This is great. I love the presentations. I am a refuge supervisor. I work in our regional office in Minneapolis and supervise refuges in 5 states, Illinois being one of those states, and Hackmatack being one of my favorite refuges to supervise. So, and I'll take this opportunity to really just can't thank the Friends enough. Obviously, without the Friends, we wouldn't have a refuge to begin with, and it certainly wouldn't have grown to where it is today. You heard all the great habitat work that's happened, all the great outreach that's happened. You've all been so supportive with Todd when he first came and in doing all the things that he needed to do to sort of establish, what do I want to say, the functions of the refuge from all the administrative work and all the things that he had to do to kind of get it fully going. But really appreciate everyone's work and congratulations on 10 years. As someone said, we look forward to the next 10. And I know that Todd was on, I don't know if he still is, but many thanks to Todd for all his hard work. And I know he put in extra hours and brought his family out to help. And we wouldn't be where we are today without Todd either. Just hated to see him go, but he's on to more things for his career and doing more things for the refuge system. So appreciate all your work, Todd, and we miss you. And we hope to fill that position as soon as possible. I don't want to promise, but hopefully it will be advertised next week to recruit a new manager. So that's how it's looking right now. So again, thanks so much for all your hard work and great partnerships.
Kathy, thank you for your leadership as well. We very much appreciate it.
I wish I could do more. I'll just let me know what you need. I'll try to do
There's
more.
Todd.
I saw Todd. Hey, Todd.
Hey, everybody. So yes, I am Todd. I am the former refuge manager.
And apparently you're farther north than we thought, Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'm enjoying the beauty of it. But no, I actually just want to speak up quickly to say that it's truly been an honor to actually work with such a wonderful group of individuals. Obviously, it's been quite the experience to work with everybody. Sometimes I feel like I'm standing on their shirt tails and I'm just kind of hanging on. And you guys just led me through a lot of different situations. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity, but I also think that this is just the beginning. I think this refuge is just a wonderful refuge that's in the works. And the beauty with Zoom is I can still be somewhat connected and I can still see what great work is going on. So I look forward to seeing a lot of things in the future. And I hope to see more emails and more Facebook posts because I realize now that you have more followers than I do. So I definitely need to jump on your shirt tails again and go with that. So anyways, thanks a lot. And I look forward to seeing what's coming in the future.
Thanks, Todd. You're muted, Cindy.
I said, oh, sorry, I was gonna say, I'm jumping around the questions, and before we lose Kathy and Todd, there was a question that probably we gotta throw to them. Dennis Dreyer asked, any updates on getting approval from U.S. Fish and Wildlife to do burning on their properties?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that, and maybe Todd has something to add. Yeah, I apologize that it's taking us forever to be able to burn. We have all our, I guess, our general fire management plan we put in place, I think 2 years ago now. It's before COVID. Everything's either before COVID or after COVID. So now we just have to get the specific site prescription burn plans done, which we had hoped to have done this last winter. We have to use staff at some other refuges that are qualified to do those burn plans. So they got pulled on some other projects. So we will work hard on that this spring and summer to get those plans done. If there are some fall burns we can do, we should be ready by then for fall burns, but then by next spring. And I know we have great partnership with McHenry County to help us do those burns. We do have to follow our national standards with the training, et cetera, and our staffing or people that are qualified to do those burns. But we are working towards that. We will get there. I apologize it's taken us so long. I know there's a big need for the habitat restoration projects out there. So it hasn't fallen off our radar. We just have fire staff that are kind of overwhelmed. So anything you want to add, Todd?
No, I think you actually touched everything perfectly. So
Okay.
the nice thing with it is I think that there is going to be a change with the fire program. I actually think that there is going to be potentially more help coming. But like Kathy indicated, we got to get the plans in place to really start to move forward at this refuge, and that's going to come.
Great. I'm scrolling through the chat, so there's lots of congratulations in the chat from everybody. We so appreciate your kind words. So I'm not going to read those. People can look through them. Linda put in the links to our webpage with specifically to the blog and the timeline. Pete forgot to mention that there's a work day coming up this coming Sunday from 9 a.m. to noon. So contact Pete if you want to, if you're not already on his stewardship work list, email list. His email is in the chat, or you can just put your name in the chat saying, hey, I want to be put on the list, and we'll grab the chat. I think we had a couple comments from Rami asking about all our Facebook followers. Do we know where they're from? And I would say, yeah, they're from all over the country, but, definitely you can tell that they're predominantly in the Chicagoland region. She asked too, like, how well do people know about Hackmatack? And I'd say it's pretty scattered. I can certainly run into people in Richmond and Spring Grove, and when we're out at events that talk about the refuge, and people are like, well, I didn't know there was a refuge here. But I feel like, at least from the Eagles of Illinois tabling that we did, Susan and I did a couple of weeks ago, and Audubon was there also. I think more and more people are hearing about it. And then Rami also says, oh, she'd like to have an event at her farm in Richmond. So how can we make that happen? So we'll definitely get back to you on that.
Cindy, there was a question I answered in the chat, but just in case folks didn't see it, someone was curious if the Queen Anne Corps included Bull Valley. And I do not believe that anything in the refuge is in Bull Valley municipal boundaries. If it is, it's a touches the very edge of something, but I don't believe that's the case.
It's interesting, some of our public events, like in Search of Eagles, you get people who've traveled quite a distance to get there at 8 o'clock in the morning at McHenry Dam, or at, I'm usually at the Algonquin Dam to, so, you know, somehow that gets up. And I believe, Cindy, one time we even got a post for our Monarch Fair from somewhere in the Caribbean or something like that. Some group picked up our Monarch Fair. So it's interesting, you know, that it does get out, and you meet people that you come to the Monarch Fair from, like, you know, Palos in the southern Chicago area, you know, so it's interesting.
Yeah. Do we have?
I see Lenore is there. I was wondering, Lenore, if you wanted to say a few words. Lenore was one of our early partners with Open Lands, and one of the earlier instigators and dreamers for the Refuge. Would you want to say a few words, Lenore?
Thanks, Steve. You know, you guys are doing amazing work. I'm really excited to see all the land acquisition and the restoration work and continuing to engage people. The diversity outreach is amazing too. It's all stuff we've talked about a lot, and it's really cool to see coming forward. So I continue to track all that, and I think the signage is amazing too. I haven't been up there to see it yet, so I'll have to come out and do that.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for keeping my pictures in the slideshow.
Yeah, we've tried to make sure we had a picture of you and Sarah, and other board members have moved out of the area. So we've got just a few more minutes. If folks do have questions, if you want to come off mute and ask your question, or we're happy to also say goodnight to you. But oh, Stacy's got her hand up.
I want to thank Cindy. Cindy is an absolutely amazing coordinator and herder of cats. It's a pleasure working with Friends of Hackmatack on some of the things that IDNR and Friends and Audubon collaborate with. And Cindy is just incredible. And so I just want to give a shout out for her.
Oh, thanks, Stacy. Well, as I said, you guys we've had such great partners, not only in all the land conservation work that others have talked about, but on our outreach efforts. So thank you for that.
And real quick, I want to point out that Stacy, of course, is one of our big partners with Audubon and with IDNR. Anybody else who would like to, be involved, be part of our committees, and please, we need help. We're all volunteers, and we need all the different kind of expertise that a lot of you have. So please contact us.
Oh. Marty.
Good point, Nancy. Yeah, I mean, put your name in the chat if you're a person who wants to go out and cut things, put your name in the chat, say that, and we'll hook you up with Pete. And if you're interested in helping with our programs, I think in our last couple of newsletters, there's been a plea for folks to help with World Migratory Bird Day coming up in the end of April through mid-May. So we'd love to have you be a part of that. We have fun.
Marty's got her hand up there. Go ahead, Marty.
My calendar says November 8th is Election Day. And you might want to consider changing that date.
Well, we didn't consider Election Day, which of course is extremely important, when we contracted with Lakeside Center to take our usual second Tuesday. So
vote early and often.
Yes.
Yeah, but think about election workers, for example.
You didn't hear that from me.
Are you an election worker, Marty?
I've been known to be.
Oh,
not the only one out there. I'm sure there are a lot of people out here who are. I am. Yeah.
Yep. What time does the event start?
It's usually at 6:30. It'll be extended and probably run till 9, but it'll be earlier and, we may have, if we have kids artwork, families might be coming in early
Yeah.
to see the artwork, so.
Election
Yeah,
workers are lucky to get home by 10.
Right.
Yeah, you'll lose 2 or 3 people maybe, because I am an election worker, but voting is, the voters, I'm sure, can time their vote cast and make your meeting. I'm sorry, I'll have to miss it this year.
Any other last words from anybody? If not, I guess we'll say thank you for being our members and for helping us get a refuge, helping us get 10 years into having a refuge, and we look forward to celebrating with you throughout this year.
Thank you all.
Real clapping.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Night all.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.